Hi. That music's like. Um, yeah, my name's Kelly Anna, and I'm an artist and print designer. I don't know if that's turning. Something's happening. Great way to start. It's not actually clicking. Again, live, this is what happens. I need to go back. Hold on. There we go. Okay, cool. So just first of all, it's such a pleasure to be here just because I'm a huge, huge fan of Kate and Nick, so thank you so much for having me. So my name is Kelly Anna. I'm an artist and print designer, and I work for a variety of different brands and clients doing print and illustration. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit today about my background and my journey up until this point, one of the projects I worked on this year, and what's next for me, all in 15 minutes. So I'm just going to take you right back. So this is my dad, Eamon. I still have not figured out why he's painting the Colonel. Maybe just like chicken, I don't know. So he's been my inspiration from day one and my tutor, basically. And he is probably one of the most amazing figurative sketchers I met. Not necessarily through technically, but just mainly the way he approached it. So he would always teach me to sketch without hesitation and sketch with confidence. You know, if he ever saw me like trying to get that perfect angle or perfect moment to put the pen to paper, he'd just scrap the paper and tell me to start again. And I think this is one thing that's really stayed with me throughout my career, is that there really, really is never the right time to start. Just put your pen to paper and just get on with it. So I used to kind of put this training into place at ballroom and Latin competitions and dances. Myself and all my family are ballroom and Latin dancers. That's my dad again as a young boy there, and my brother Josh, who's here tonight. Sorry, hopefully with less hair gel on. So I used to sit at these dances and I'd watch the dancers move around the floor and record the movement. And there's a real energy that you get in these rooms that I really like to sketch. And there's one thing, I don't know if you've ever seen ballroom Latin dancing, but it is incredibly exaggerated, all the moves. And this is something I really enjoyed doing. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the colour. I used to squint my eyes and watch the dancers move around the floor, and it was just like this pool of like colour. And I think that's really, really influenced me up until this point. Another thing he always taught me was to look up and just focus on your subject. If you're focusing on your subject, I think technique will follow naturally. So I would practice for years doing figure drawing, and my uncle actually used to work on Savile Row, and he was the one who told me to start looking into fashion illustration. And so this is how I ended up doing fashion illustration at uni. And whilst I was there, I won a competition to live illustrate at Fashion Week, which meant I sat front row and sketched the looks as they came down the catwalk. And I think this years of like capturing this movement really, really helped. And I ended up doing fashion events as well, live illustrating at events, which I still do a bit of now. And I think it's a really nice way to capture the environment. So being at Fashion Week, this is where I really, really got into print design. I absolutely loved the way that print was telling the story behind each collection. And I love the way that the graphics were really like reflecting our culture and vice versa. And I think that's still quite relevant in the world today, especially in fashion. So for the last couple of years, I have been working as a freelance print designer. working in fashion, music, and footwear. And before I went into this route, I was actually training up to be a professional dancer before I went into the design route. So this is just kind of a nice way to really still kind of marry the two together, the performance and print. What I really, really love about print design is that every collection you do is completely different to the last, which means you're continuously like developing on your style, and changing and adapting to stay relevant, which is what I find really interesting, especially being in the world today where we have to keep up and keep moving with the times. I think as a print designer, it's integral to really, really understand your base, whether that's a shoe pattern or a bag. I think you really need to understand your surface that you're working on, and then be able to take your artwork and really engineer it to that product and make something completely new. When I started out in the industry, I had literally no idea how to create a print, which I think is quite nice, and touching on what Kate said before about this kind of naivety. I think that's actually a really nice thing. And I probably shouldn't say this at an Adobe event, but when I went for my first interview, I completely lied and said I could use Illustrator, which I couldn't. But when you're working to factory deadlines, you learn pretty quick. So yeah, touching on that, again, what Kate said, I think it's really, really, it's actually a really nice thing to go into something with a really fresh approach and actually sometimes you don't know things, and I think that's quite a nice way to go into something, because you're not really taught any rules, so you come in with a really fresh approach. So whilst working as a print designer, I've also been working on lots of collaborations and partnerships, and continuously trying to develop myself as an artist, which I think can actually take years to understand who you are as an artist. I'm sure loads of you here have understanding that kind of continuous push. But I've really taught myself to just kind of step back and allow myself to teach myself new mediums and techniques and constantly challenge myself. One of the things I'm really, really learning as an artist is just to have fun. I think definitely working with lots of clients and brands, there's often times where you get into this creative block, and that's the time I really like to just completely strip it back and be like, fuck this, sorry. I'm just going to strip it back. And I think this is why I've started getting back into paper collage. It is literally the rawest form of medium. I think it's my favorite medium, actually. And I really, really love just the rawness of it, and just being able to completely, again, fuck up and play with composition. So over the last couple of years, I've been studying the female form again, and really wanting to understand how I can express what I see in women, like that strength and that kind of power. And it's actually been a really proud moment as a girl over the last couple of years to see this massive movement in women empowerment. And I know that you've all seen it happening. It's definitely there. But it's really nice because in the world we're in today, I think it's really, really important for us to show girls, to show the younger generation like how to hold themselves with confidence. For me, that's really important. I also just find the female form really, really interesting and powerful anyway. And I love the curves we have and how to I love exaggerating the curves we have, and I think that's really interesting for me. This always does this, hold on. Am I going to be able to go back? No. So growing up as well, I was a gymnast. and a gymnast teacher, and so I used to kind of compete a lot. And I just absolutely loved the way the bodies would bend and turn into these like alien creatures. And I think that's definitely just been a huge influence on my work today. So earlier this year, whilst working on all of these different projects, I was picked up by Nike Women. And they asked me to create an in-store activation. And they kind of just gave me the freedom to come up with something genuine and unique to my style. And it was actually just really nice to have a brand come to you and say that. I think often it's kind of, you know, you've got things to think about and, you know, briefs and all these things, but it was just lovely for them to come and be like, just take over and do what you want, which is so nice. So I'm just going to talk you through my process of how I work with projects. So I often start with research. I love spending a day researching, not even picking up a pen. I think that's really important. Kind of gets you excited and pumped up for the project. And I kind of knew going into this project that I wanted it to be, I wanted the copy to be just as powerful as the image it sat with. And I'm not a writer at all, so I kind of approach it like I do print. So I kind of scribble down the words, cut them up, collage them, and generally this kind of comes up with something quite fun. I also started looking at stamps. I'm a huge fan of stamps. I also looked at the Olympics logo, which is my favorite logo, and Liga. I'm really into cubism. My dad was also a cubist painter, and I think it's one of those really nice things to kind of merge all these things together. So once I've done all my research, I tend to just spend days just sketching, which is, for me, the funnest part. And this particular project, I was asked to draw women doing yoga, running, gym workouts. And I usually really like to just keep sketching until I feel like I've got a really good body to then move on to digital. And as the project was developing, I created loads of different ideas to kind of sit alongside the activation, from books, training guides, bags. And this part's actually really exciting for me because you can kind of take it into so many different directions. But this is what I came up with, never tame your game. And I think this is really important for me as an artist, just in this industry, that kind of thing of just pushing yourself and just never giving up, basically. And I kind of just wanted this activation to have that positive message. I'll take some water. So on the same day this launched, I also created a Women's Day party. And we had 170 girls all under one roof, and they got to do a print workshop. So they'd kind of make their print, and then at the end of the night, they got to take away take a T-shirt that they'd printed away with them, which was also really lovely. We had girl DJs, cocktails, and a shitload of pens. It was actually amazing. Although I did end up with like 2 of those packets. I think people caught on. But it was such a fun evening, and it was just so nice to see such a diverse bunch of girls come together, from lawyers to fashion designers and art directors. It was just really nice to see such an eclectic mix come together and just do the most basic thing, colouring in. And one of the most amazing things was girls coming up to me at the end of the night saying how relaxed they felt just colouring. And I do this for a job, so it's definitely not that relaxing sometimes. But it was really nice to hear them say that. So off the back of that, I created my first colouring book, which I've actually got some with me tonight, if you would like to come and get some at the back on the break. It does say super female, but guys, definitely, you're more than welcome to come and get some. So what's next? I'm really excited about my next collaboration or partnership with Art of Ping Pong, which will be releasing later this month. If you haven't checked out Art of Ping Pong, check them out. They're amazing. Also, really, really excited. I'm working on something very special with Nike again. And finally, working on my first solo exhibition. And this will be releasing next spring. And I'll be delving much more into 3D works, laser cutting, weaving, and mural artworks. So that's me. Thank you so much for listening. And I'd love to meet you all. Thank you.